Well, seeing as I am a woman of a certain age, I occasionally get offensive emails. Oh, some of them are just for being a woman, I might say, but some of them are for the terrible crime of attaining the age that I have done. And I had a nice little conversation with some guy called Kev under my last video. This is not a call for anyone to have a go at Kev. He does that himself quite well. You really don't need to bother about him. But I did want to say that up to date, the final insult was get back onto your Zimmer frame, you silly old woman, or words to that effect. And I was nearly enticed into putting up a photo of me in full competition kit, riding, in a competition. And almost, but not quite, because I do value my privacy and I'm always worried about personal photos giving somebody the clue to track me down. So I'm not doing that, but I will put up here a photograph of my latest Zimmer frame. That's not mine, it's just a similar one to the sort of horse I told you in an earlier video that I'd taken on because the owner could no longer handle her. And so this is my latest Zimmer frame. And I do invite Kev to keep on revisiting my channel because for every insult, I get a couple more pennies on the advertising revenue. It's not going to make me a millionaire, but it's immensely satisfying anyway. Now, look, I am actually going to be talking about this. It's a mailing I got from gab.com. Now, I belong to Gab as well as to Twitter. This is simple self-preservation because we all know now Twitter, YouTube, they could cancel you like that. And so I'm on Gab as well. Gab is a much smaller platform. And furthermore, seeing as it's a free platform, it's full of a lot of the most awful anti-Semitic rubbish and nationalistic rubbish that you just don't get it on Twitter, obviously. On the other hand, it's a free platform, and there's always the other side to the coin, isn't there? You can't have complete freedom without allowing complete arses, they say as well. And I did want to talk to you about this little mailing from Gab. They did say pass it round, and I thought I'd pass it round in the only way I can, and that's through my channel. And this is from the CEO of Gab, Andrew Torber. There are two emerging narratives that are being seeded by the mainstream media as weapons for censoring post-election information online. I know this firsthand because I'm getting inbound media requests daily asking how Gab plans to handle the election. Last week, the first post-election narrative was being crafted by the mainstream media. And obviously, we're talking about the American election, but that is of relevance to us all. The Russian Hoax 2.0.1 wrote about this narrative and shared my experience with a Reuters journalist here. So let's have a look at the Reuters journalist. October the 1st, 2020, by Andrew Torber. Russian Hoax 2.0, How Journalism Works According to Reuters. Earlier this week, Jack Stubbs, a air quotes, journalist from Reuters, reached out to Gab's support team requesting a comment on a right-wing media organisation that was being used by foreign actors in an attempt to spread covert political messaging in the United States. Upon review, I noticed that this right-wing media organisation was nothing more than a simple, low-traffic blog with opinion and news articles about various cultural and political topics. There are plenty of foreign actors who have blogs and Gab accounts like this to comment on various political topics, including politics and social issues in the United States. Nothing about this violates Gab's terms of service. If it did, we wouldn't have millions of people from around the world in our community. Well, I'm not too sure about that because there's one or two particularly nasty blogs that turn up on Gab all the time, and I don't like them, but I still go back to Gab. And I go back because it's a free speech channel or platform. Big tech platforms immediately suspended the accounts of this organization once it was reported that they were allegedly Russian. Oh, Russian. Sorry. You will see this bigger. I've had to minimize the page to be able to fit it into the panel I already created on the screen grab, the QuickTime screen grab. So it's rather small for me. Gab did not ban the accounts. If these Gab accounts were being run by the Russians, doesn't the world deserve to see what they have to say? Do the Russians not have the right to speak freely on the internet? At Gab, we believe that all people have a fundamental human right to speak freely on the internet. Yep, and I'm with them on that one. The hypocrisy in all of this is the fact that the press ignores the Chinese Communist Party's subversion of American media. Yeah, they do subvert it. And I'm not going to click that link, but I can just remind you of one particular example where a lot of Hollywood films are now being sold in China. And for that reason, they are super non-critical of the Chinese way of doing things. And once or twice I've seen, well, I'm sure this happens more, but I've seen mentions of the Chinese actually insisting on a certain type of character or situation in a Hollywood film that would reflect better on China or Chinese heroes or whatever. And of course, we have to remember the latest version of Mulan, which, as it turns out, was filmed in a part of China which is now notorious for concentration camps interning Chinese citizens who are Uyghurs, which is a sort of Muslim. I don't know whether it's a Chinese ethnicity or simply the sort of Islam they follow. I believe it's a sort of Sunni Islam, but you know there are different sorts of Islam. People like to think of Islam as a monolithic organization. So far as I know, the Uyghurs were, you know, reasonable type of people and not at all fanatical. But I could be wrong about that. That's the impression I got. Anyway, they are, whatever, being interned in concentration camps in the very part of China where Mulan, the live action film, was recently filmed. Okay. And of course, there's TikTok, which we all know about. I will not install that on my phone. Oh, here we are. TikTok tracks everything that Americans say and do. The TikTok algorithm feeds them information and socially engineers them at will. That is the real national security threat of foreign actors spreading covert political messaging and tracking US citizens on a massive scale. Yeah, I did mention a TikTok video in which various people apparently single actors, but in fact, it became obvious that they were working to a script because they were saying the same thing about an ordinary Chinese person. The premise is this: an ordinary Chinese person talking to American visitors or European visitors in China and speaking good English gets asked by the visitors why they don't go to work in America, and these people say because China's better, or China's the future, or China will dominate the world in some way, culturally or whatever. It's that sort of thing that was happening on TikTok, and that's just a little message that goes in along with all the other silly videos that people are putting up, all innocence, little tricks they are playing and just throwing out on TikTok. Related Christian TikTok videos are censored and deleted to the US, creators say. Hadn't heard about that. As I've said in the past, TikTok should be banned from the United States. Yeah, I think it should be banned from everywhere in the West immediately. I don't say something like this lightly as the CEO of an American company that is itself banned from both app stores. You see, Gab is banned. And I can see why somebody has found some of the more unsavory videos that have been posted up onto Gab, and they said this is a terrible platform. But what's happening, and this is a problem, all the nice videos that go up on Twitter or the comments pass muster in Twitter. And then anything Twitter doesn't like, and remember, this is always going to be a constantly narrowing funnel, all the stuff Twitter doesn't like ends up on Gab. So obviously you're going to get more worse stuff on Gab. And that's why I'm putting this video out, because I want more nicer people to be on Gab rather than Twitter. And I think Torba is doing the right thing. And I think he's following the right path. And sooner or later, Gab will start to develop a following of people, more people who are more reasonable. Let's put it that way. As I've said in the past, TikTok should be banned. Okay, yeah. Speaking of Chinese influence in American technology products, don't get me started on video conferencing product Zoom and their links to China, which I happen not to know about. So I'll try and look that up afterwards. But, you can keep on clicking links. I can't do that now. I can't expect you to sit there listening to this for that length of time. Or how about the Saudis, who have invested billions of dollars into American tech and media companies like Uber and Twitter? That's quite true. And in Britain, at any rate, there's a big grocery company called Sainsbury's, and apparently they've been more or less taken over by Qatar. Well, of course, that wouldn't have much effect on the way we think, but it might have an effect. I don't know. I don't patronise Sainsbury's. There isn't one near me. But it might have an effect on, for instance, the sale of halal products and the money that the extra tax that people pay for halal goes to, of course, Muslim authorities of various sorts, including mosques and conversion drives and that sort of thing. Instead, for some odd reason, our elites in media, government and technology seem fixated on instigating and going to war with Russia. Well, yeah, that's a distraction technique, isn't it? Russia is a Christian nation that is preserving traditional values. That's a very odd thing. I grew up with Russia being a mindless machine behind an iron curtain, and now it's a traditional Christian nation. It is run by a despot who does not shrink from poisoning his opponents, though. So I can't say that I am all that much in favour of the way Russia handles things generally and politics in particular. However, I haven't ever heard of Russia resorting to germ warfare, which is what China has done recently with the coronavirus. So they get a pass on that. The Chinese Communist Party, the Saudis, oh dear, that's a grammatical error, and others who our media and technology oligarchs do business with and give a pass to commit all manner of human rights atrocities and injustices. No one seems to care about these facts. And yeah, he's absolutely right there. So a journalist from Reuters contacted us a few days ago about this topic. I sent a statement to him that day. He published the article a few days later. He claimed that Gab had no comment on the article. Isn't that a disgrace? This is a journalist. A journalist is supposed to report things irrespective of personal feelings. Now, if he wants to make comments like I do, he can cut things out. Actually, like I don't, but I mean, he has that right. But when you're writing a story and you ask for a comment and you get one, and then you say no comment, that is not journalism. That's just out and out using a platform to lie. That's all it is. The article was distributed across the wire and reprinted by many other big outlets. I followed up with a reply in my original email chain to him demanding an explanation. The journalist claims my email went to his junk folder. I've used that excuse as well about things I didn't want to do or didn't like or just hadn't got round to. Yet somehow my second email in the same chain did not. Yeah. He then updates the article, but the damage has already been done. As the journalist would know, he knew what would happen. He'd make the mistake, then he'd be corrected, and then he'd correct it. But by that time, yeah, as they say, a lie goes round the world twice before the truth has even got its pants on. I think actually Churchill said has even got his trousers on. Or something like that. He then updates the article. The damage has already been done. Gab's statement is on none of the other reprinted articles. I have all the receipts below. This is how these people operate, folks. This is journalism. Okay, so just a quick thing here. Now I'll go back to the previous page and I've got to move it. Okay. So I shared experience with Reuters. Okay, one of the many players behind the emerging Russia hoax is Graphica, a strange organization made up of former Google employees and ironically some Russian guy named Vladimir. Well, I'm not entirely sure he has to be a Russian guy just because he's called Vladimir, but anyway, that's what the Torba's telling me. Graphica partners with DARPA. Gosh, this is starting to sound like SMERSH, isn't it? The US Senate Select Committee, it is SMERSH, on intelligence, Facebook, Google and more to map social media landscapes and reveal unique patterns in information diffusion. Oh, my poor, suffering English language. Oh, how I feel for you. In other words, it would appear that Graphica partners with the deep state, the mainstream media and big tech to track you and shut you up. I'm not sure that exactly follows, but certainly I don't like it when you've got all these sort of select committees with odd names, you know. This week, a new narrative is emerging. Pressure social networks to censor post-election information from President Trump and anyone who supports him. I'm absolutely certain that Torba's right there. Yeah, I agree with that. A reporter from CNET reached out to me today about this new post-election narrative. You can read the full email exchange in this blog post. Please make sure to share it with others. All right, so I'll tell you what. What should I do? I'll tell you what. I'll just leave you a link. And then you can have a link to the whole thing, and you can find that yourself because this video's getting long enough anyway. All right, so that's the message I got from Gab. I do urge you all to at least install Gab or access Gab and take a look at it from time to time, even if you're a more regular user of Twitter. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com. And whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe, and share, share, share.